Welcome to the deep dive. Get ready to explore the world of eicosonoids.
Oh, yeah, these are fascinating compounds.
They are. Think of them as tiny chemical messengers.
They have a huge impact.
Right. We'll be diving deep into their roles in inflammation, pain, blood clotting, you name it.
All based on eicosonoids.pdf, a really interesting document.
That's our source material for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Now, what exactly are eicosonoids? I hear they're often compared to hormones.
They are, but there are some key differences.
Okay, I'm curious.
So hormones are like long-distance travelers.
Yeah. Produced in one place, acting in another.
Exactly. Eicosonoids are more like local heroes.
So they stay put?
They're produced right where they're needed, and they act super fast.
Like a rapid response team.
Exactly.
Got it. So what kind of tasks do these local heroes handle?
Ah, so many things. Maintaining your stomach lining, ensuring your kidneys function correctly.
Wow, essential stuff.
They even regulate smooth muscle contraction, like in your intestines,
So they're involved in digestion too.
and blood vessel diameter.
And blood pressure regulation.
Oh, and keeping your platelets in check. Those tiny cells responsible for clotting.
Wow, they really are involved in everything.
They are, which makes them incredibly important, but also potentially dangerous.
How so?
Well, think of it this way, because they're so potent.
Right, they're powerful.
Even a slight imbalance can have a huge impact on your health.
Like a delicate ecosystem.
Exact.
Makes sense. So how are these eicosonoids made? Where do they come from?
It starts with fatty acids, specifically one called arachidonic acid.
Arachidonic acid, that sounds familiar.
It's an omega-6 fatty acid.
Right, and isn't it found in cell membranes?
Yes, it's stored there until it's needed. Then an enzyme called phospholipase A2 releases it,
Okay, so it's like arachidonic acid is on standby,
waiting for its cue.
and this enzyme is the signal.
Perfect analogy. Now, once it's released, arachidonic acid can be transformed into different types of eicosonoids through two main pathways.
Two pathways, tell me more.
The cyclooxygenase pathway, or COX, and the lipoxygenase pathway, or LOX.
COX and LOX. So two different factories, essentially.
Think of it like that, yeah. COX leads to prostaglandins and thromboxanes.
And LOX.
leukotrienes.
Okay, so we've got prostaglandins, thromboxanes, and leukotrienes, all made from arachidonic acid, but taking different paths to become different things.
You got it.
Fascinating. Now, you mentioned COX, the cyclooxygenase pathway. I've heard there's something called TOX1 and KOX2. What's the difference?
Ah, great question. These are two key enzymes within the COX pathway.
Okay, so two different workers in the same factory.
Exactly. They play distinct roles. COX enzymes convert arachidonic acid into prostaglandin H2.
Prostaglandin H2, and what is that?
It's like the base molecule, the foundation for a whole family of prostaglandins.
Ah, the building blocks. Now, prostaglandins, aren't those involved in inflammation?
They are, but it's more complex than that. They can be both helpful and harmful.
Oh, how so?
We'll take PGI2, for example. It's also known as prostacyclin.
PGI2, prostacyclin.
This one helps prevent blood clots and keeps things flowing smoothly in your blood vessels.
Like a traffic cop, keeping the
Yay.
blood moving.
But then we have TXA2, thromboxane A2.
Okay, TXA2, what's its role?
It's more like a first responder to an injury.
Oh, interesting. So it's involved in blood clotting?
Exactly. It promotes clotting, constricts blood vessels, basically does whatever it takes to stop bleeding.
So it's like a constant balancing act.
You got it. PGI2, keeping things flowing. TXA2, stepping in when we need to stop the flow.
A delicate dance inside our bodies.
Absolutely. And to make things even more interesting,
It always gets more interesting.
there are medications that specifically target these KOX enzymes.
Oh, you mean like NSAIDs?
Mm.
Aspirin, ibuprofen?
Yes, those are NSAIDs.
I use those all the time for headaches. So how do they work?
They inhibit COX
You
enzymes.
block them,
Exactly. And by doing so, they reduce prostaglandin production.
which in turn reduces pain and inflammation.
Exactly.
But I've heard NSAs can have side effects.
Ah, you're thinking of COX1 and COX2.
Yeah, those different enzymes.
Right. Many NSAIDs block both, and that can be a problem.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here. So what are the downsides of blocking both KOX1 and KOX2?
Well, remember how KOX1 helps protect your stomach lining?
Right, it's one of its many jobs.
Inhibiting it can lead to ulcers.
Ah, that makes
And
sense.
since it's involved in blood clotting,
Blocking it could lead to bleeding problems.
exactly. So there's a delicate balance there.
It's like trying to solve one problem but creating another one in the process.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why scientists have been working on developing drugs that specifically target KOX2.
KOX2, the one involved in inflammation.
Precisely. These are called coxibs.
So a more targeted approach
Exactly.
with hopefully fewer side effects.
That's the idea. Currently, there's only one FDA-approved coxib,
Just one. What's it called?
celecoxib.
Celecoxib. Okay, I'll have to look into that.
But even coxibs have potential risks, so it's important to talk to your doctor.
Right, always consult with a professional.
Now, speaking of balancing acts, let's talk about aspirin.
Aspirin, the classic pain reliever. But I've heard it can be tricky.
It is. It has this unique ability to modify COX enzymes.
Modify them? What do you mean?
It permanently changes them. But here's the thing.
Okay, there's always a but.
It affects them differently depending on where they are in the body.
Wait, so it changes the same enzyme differently based on its location. That's fascinating.
It is, and that's why low-dose aspirin can be helpful for preventing strokes and heart attacks.
Right, I've heard about that. But how does it work?
It inhibits TXA2 production in platelets.
TXA2, the one that promotes clotting.
Exactly, so it helps prevent those dangerous blood clots.
Okay, so it's targeting TXA2 specifically in platelets.
You got it.
But you said aspirin can be tricky. What's the catch?
Well, remember the LOX pathway?
The other eicosonoid pathway.
Right. Aspirin can actually increase leukotriene production in some people.
Leukotrienes, those are the ones involved in allergies, right?
Exactly. And that can be a problem for people with asthma.
So it's like trying to fix one thing and accidentally messing up another?
Exactly. It highlights how complex these systems are.
This has been incredibly informative. But I think our listeners could use a little break to process everything we've learned about aspirin, COX, and these fascinating eicosonoids.
A good idea.
We'll be back soon to delve deeper into the LOX pathway and those intriguing leukotrienes. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our exploration of the fascinating world of eicosonoids.
These tiny compounds have such a big impact on our bodies.
Before the break, we were discussing aspirin and how it can be tricky for people with asthma because of its effect on the LOX pathway and leukotrienes.
Right, aspirin can impact that pathway. But before we get to leukotrienes, let's go back to prostaglandins for a moment.
Back to the COX pathway. We talked about PGI2, the traffic cop, and TXA2, the first responder. But there's a whole family of prostaglandins, right?
Oh, absolutely. Each with its own unique role.
Tell me more. Who else is in this family?
Well, there's PGE2, for instance.
PG2. Yeah.
This one's a major player in inflammation.
Inflammation, so like when you get a cut and it gets red and swollen.
Yeah, exactly. PGE2 is often involved in those uncomfortable symptoms.
So it's the one making us feel bad.
You could say that, but it's not always a bad guy.
It's not.
Nope. It also helps protect your stomach lining.
Oh, right. That's why NSAIDs can cause stomach problems, because they block PGE2.
Exactly.
So it's a protector and a troublemaker.
It all depends on the context.
Wow, these eicosanoids are so complex. What other prostaglandins are there?
Well, there's PGF2.
PGF2, okay.
This one is a powerful muscle contractor.
A muscle contractor?
Wait, especially in the uterus.
Wait, so prostaglandins are involved in childbirth?
Oh, yeah, big time. PGF2 helps stimulate those uterine contractions.
Wow, I had no idea. These little compounds are involved in bringing new life into the world.
They really are involved in so many processes, from regulating sleep to influencing bone metabolism.
It's incredible. It's like there's this whole hidden world inside our bodies.
Exactly. There's so much we still don't know, but each discovery reveals just how intricate and interconnected everything is.
This is all fascinating, but it's a lot of science. What does all this mean for us, the listeners? Why should we care about eicosanoids?
That's a great question. Understanding eicosanoids can help us make informed decisions about our health.
Okay, how so?
Well, for example, knowing their role in inflammation can help us understand how our diet might impact those processes.
So what we eat can affect our eicosanoids.
Absolutely. Diets high in omega-6 fatty acids, like those found in processed food.
Junk food, basically.
Pretty much. Those can increase the production of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids.
So those chips and cookies might be doing more than just adding inches to our waistlines.
Exactly. They could be fueling inflammation throughout the body.
Yuck, that's not good. So what should we be eating instead?
Diets rich in omega-3s, like those found in fatty fish.
Salmon, tuna, things like that.
Yes. Omega-3s can promote the production of anti-inflammatory eicosanoids.
So it's not just about how much fat we eat, but the types of fat.
Exactly. It's all about balance. And it's not just diet that matters.
What else influences eicosanoid activity?
Stress. Chronic stress can trigger the release of cortisol.
Cortisol, the stress hormone.
Right. And that can impact eicosanoid production. On the other hand, exercise can help reduce inflammation.
So managing stress and staying active can help keep our eicosanoids in check.
It seems that way. There's still a lot to learn, but the evidence suggests lifestyle choices play a big role.
It's good to know we have some control over these processes,
It can feel overwhelming, but even small changes can make a difference.
like choosing salmon over chips and taking a walk instead of scrolling through social media when stressed.
Exactly. Small, consistent changes over time can have a big impact on your health. And of course, it's always wise to consult with your doctor for personalized advice.
Okay, so before we overwhelm our listeners with even more information, let's shift gears and finally discuss those leukotrienes we keep mentioning.
Leukotrienes, the products of the LOX pathway.
Right, the other eicosanoid pathway. They're involved in allergies, right?
Leukotrienes are powerful players in the inflammatory response, especially when it comes to allergies.
Okay, now things are getting interesting. Tell me everything about leukotrienes and their role in allergies.
Well, think of them as the drama queens of the eicosonoid world.
Drama queens, I like that analogy.
When they're triggered, they really know how to cause a scene.
Okay, I'm hooked. What kind of scene are we talking about?
Imagine you're walking through a field of flowers surrounded by pollen,
Sounds lovely.
but for some people, that pollen triggers an allergic reaction, and leukotrienes are often the culprits.
So they're the ones responsible for the sneezing, itchy eyes, and runny nose.
Exactly. They cause inflammation and constriction in the airways, leading to those classic allergy symptoms.
So it's like they're sending out an SOS signal, causing chaos in the body.
That's a great way to put it. And for people with asthma, leukotrienes can make their symptoms even worse.
Triggering those breathing difficulties.
Exactly. So for those folks, managing leukotrienes is crucial.
So how do we deal with these drama queens? Are there medications that can calm them down?
Yes, there are. We have medications that specifically target the LOX pathway.
So we have tools for both the COX and LOX pathways.
Exactly. For COX, we have NSAIDs and COXIBs. And for LOX, we have leukotriene inhibitors and leukotriene receptor antagonists.
Wow, it's like a whole arsenal of weapons to fight inflammation?
That's one way to think about it. Each tool with its own specific targets and mechanisms.
This has been absolutely fascinating. We've learned so much of leukotrienes and the LOX pathway and how they contribute to those pesky allergy symptoms.
It's amazing how much is going on beneath the surface, isn't it?
It really is. And it makes you appreciate the complexity of the human body and all the intricate processes happening within us all the time.
Well said. And we're not done yet.
There's more.
Oh, there's always more to learn. In our final segment, we'll wrap things up and explore some final thoughts about these incredible eicosonoids. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring these fascinating eicosonoids.
These tiny compounds that play such a huge role in how our bodies function.
We've talked about the COX and LOS pathways, prostaglandins, leukotrienes.
Even how our diet and lifestyle choices can impact them.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. And as we wrap things up, I wanted to highlight one more cool thing about these eicosonoids.
Okay, what is it?
Well, remember how we discussed cortisol and its ability to put the brakes on leukotriene production?
Yeah, cortisol, the stress hormone, can actually inhibit those drama queens.
Right. It turns out that's just one of many ways our bodies naturally regulate these potent compounds.
So we have built-in mechanisms for keeping those eicosonoids in check.
Exactly. It's like our bodies have this incredible system of checks and balances to make sure things don't spiral out of control.
It's like our bodies are constantly working behind the scenes to maintain harmony.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show how important it is to understand these pathways and how they interact.
This deep dive has been truly eye-opening. We've covered so much ground.
We have. From how eicosonoids are made to their impact on our health.
Prostaglandins, leukotrienes, NSAIDs, aspirin, the COX, and LOX pathways.
Even how things like our diet and stress levels can influence these powerful compounds.
It's amazing how much we've learned. Hopefully our listeners are walking away with a deeper appreciation for the incredible complexity of their own bodies.
I hope so. Because knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, before we sign off, I have one final question for our listeners to ponder.
Okay, I'm listening.
We've talked a lot about how eicosonoids are made from those omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. But what about other types of fats?
That's a great question.
Do they play any role in this intricate dance of eicosonoids? It's something to think about.
It is. There's still so much we don't know about the world of lipids and how they impact these pathways.
So even beyond what we've explored today, there's a whole universe of discovery waiting out there.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of science, the constant exploration and the never-ending quest for knowledge.
Well, on that note, we'll leave our listeners with that food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of eicosonoids. Keep those brains buzzing and stay curious because there's always more to learn.